Hi, my name is Dr. Dave Pratt. Thanks for watching this video. I wanted to help you out with assessment. Okay, because assessment can be tricky and teachers have a really hard time knowing how to make assessment effective. Well, I believe there are 5 keys for making assessment effective. Listen to these tips and strategies for making assessment effective and think about, as a teacher or as a student, how these can help. First, you want to make sure you have a purpose. One of the biggest problems with assessment is we do assessment, but we're not really sure why we do assessment. As teachers, you have to know why. What am I collecting this information for? What information do I need? But more than that, why do I need the information? What am I looking for? Am I looking to check progress on how well they're doing kind of on an ongoing basis, like formative, while they're learning in order to give me feedback to help them learn? Or am I doing a more summative, like at the end, kind of an assessment of what they've learned, to kind of know how to follow up or know how to teach better in the future? I mean, maybe it's a diagnostic. Maybe it's a pre-assessment to get to know what they know already so that you're not teaching them things they already know, or you could differentiate for those that already know it or have very little background knowledge. And even as a whole class, you could kind of figure out where they stand as a whole class on a certain topic. I was teaching 4th grade, and it was a curriculum called Junior Achievement, which deals with financial literacy. So I roll in the first day, and you don't ever want to assess right away. You want to get to know the students, establish relationship, and some kind of ground rules expectations together. But then I said, before we start learning about this finance, money, and about junior achievement, let's find out what you already know. You might already know some stuff. So I asked some questions and found out that they had a lot of background knowledge because they had this curriculum last year. So it really helped me know that they had a good background knowledge and I could take them to the next level. So that's really helpful. Knowing the purpose is really important. The second key is knowing what to assess. So first, once you have a purpose kind of established why you want to do this, what information do you want to collect? And assessment is really finding out what students know and can do, or that what they don't know and can't do yet. And so when you think about target, obviously targets are the standards, the objectives. You want to make sure whatever you're collecting is aligned perfectly with what you are teaching. Okay? So usually it's what is supposed to be learned, and it needs to be very focused and very specific. That way you'll get information that's valuable. When you collect data based specifically on what it is that they're supposed to learn, then you can know whether or not they learn it. The interesting thing about targets is there's a variety of targets. And so whenever you're thinking about what, I usually have curriculum and standards to refer to, but just remember that targets don't always have to be knowledge. Knowledge is surface level. I mean, there could be reasoning, which is more critical thinking targets, but expand it beyond those targets. Even the ones focused on the Bloom's taxonomy or different levels of thinking. One thing you might be interested in is their attitudes or disposition about something. So you might want to think about, my objective for this assignment is in math to learn double-digit multiplication. But you also might want to have a target that is, how do they think about math? Do they enjoy math? Do they hate math? Try to collect some information about their dispositions or beliefs or attitudes about a topic like reading or history. And that might be something you're interested in measuring and helping with as well. Next is format. So we have the keys of purpose, I know why. Target, I know what. And now, format. How am I going to assess? That's the third key. If you think about why and what, now you could really select the right style, format, approach for collecting that data. Now, what's the best format? Obviously, there's limitations with typical standardized tests, like multiple choice tests, sometimes called selected response, where you provide a question and you have 4 answers, or this could be a true-false question, or even matching. These are fine, especially if you want to measure a lot of knowledge quickly. These are perfect. These are great. But it's typically focused on lower levels of knowledge. So if you want to know if students know the capitals of the states or certain dates, sure, use multiple choice. But just remember that that's a little bit limiting depending on your targets. Other targets focused on higher levels of thinking, you typically get more from students when you do writing, a written assessment, okay? So either a short answer or essay. You really get to think about, you tap into and see kind of what the student's thinking about that topic. Some other ideas for format. I don't think people do enough with demonstrations or presentations. That's a really good format. I would call this type of format performance-based. So you have your selected response or kind of multiple choice. You have your written. But think about how students can show you what they know. Show you, demonstrate it through a presentation, a portfolio of work. So a collection of a variety of artifacts to show you what they know. Gosh, there's so many different ways. Technology can be used in so many ways too, where they can make a meme or set up a video of some kind of a presentation to demonstrate what they know. This is so effective. I'd also really think about having students share more orally or communicate what they know. Communication through either, question and answers, conferences. These are ways you could dialogue. Even when students think, pair, share with each other, you could kind of use that as an assessment point to see whether they're catching on to certain topics. So it really depends on the target, what kind of format you want that's accurate and appropriate to use. So be thinking about not only why am I assessing, what is my purpose? Is it, quick check-in, check their progress, or is it the end? And then what targets am I really assessing here? And once I have those targets nailed down specifically, I could pick my format, the way in which, or the approach that I'm using to collect that information. Next key, though, is, this is my favorite key, feedback. If assessment's done well, once you have a good assessment in place, you have to make sure you're giving feedback to the students. This should be timely, it should be specific, and really when you think about feedback, I like to think of making sure that you're addressing that target. Okay, so the target that you selected that you're measuring, you want to address that in your feedback. You did this really well. Also, here's where you can still improve. Here's an area you need to work on. So make it specific, not too overwhelming. Give them direct feedback, something they did well, something they could improve on, and even better, challenge them with a strategy or remind them of something that they had learned that they might have forgotten about. For example, I noticed that you had a lot of misspellings in your writing, which was one of the targets, which was one of the standards that we were looking at. In the future, think about using a peer reviewer or a peer editor. Or think about looking up some of the words on dictionary or online to find out the words that you're not sure about. Those are effective strategies when giving feedback to help improve the learning process next time. Instead of just telling them you're wrong about this, help them with how to get it right next time. I also think about feedback in another way. When I think about feedback, I'm giving information to the student to help them, but I'm also learning from what information I'm getting from the assessment, how I can be better and improve my teaching. In other words, when I have a whole class and they're struggling with a certain concept, I really need to learn from that. That's more on me. I didn't teach that part well. Or that's just a common misunderstanding that the class had that I need to make sure I address again in the future. So this really helps with scaffolding the next time you teach a lesson and build upon what they know. So make sure you're paying attention to the assessment data, not just in giving feedback to them, but using that feedback yourself. Finally, the last key to assessment. I want to make sure that I'm involving students in the process. Involvement is the fifth and final key to effective assessment. So, what does this mean? How do you involve students in assessment? I mean, they obviously do the assessment, but that's not what I'm talking about. Before they do the assessment, they're involved in the process of assessment. In other words, if it's a test, are they involved in creating some of the questions? If it's an essay, are they given examples? And are they given the rubric? And not just given the rubric, that's not involving them. How about giving them a rubric and looking at a sample and going over it together? That's huge. Then they know what to expect. So here's another example of involvement is having them self-assess. So they could use a rubric and go over it themselves and then maybe make some adjustments. Setting goals is another way that students can be involved in assessment. Sometimes they could even design their own rubric once they're very familiar with the assignment and expectations, or you could co-create a rubric in class. That is a summary of what I've learned in the past 30 years of teaching makes assessment so valuable and so worth your students' time and your time when grading all of these projects, papers, tests, and giving that feedback. You learn from it. Thank you again for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel where I hope to provide a lot more content to help teachers or students learn more about teaching, because I know what a huge difference you could make as a teacher. So thank you again for watching. Please subscribe, add your comments, hit the like button, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.